Hey guys, I'm Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Pat Schlopper with BassResource.com. Today I want to talk a little about kind of a, I don't know if I'd call it a forgotten technique or lure, but it's just something that's kind of overlooked, in my opinion, a lot in the largemouth world. In the smallmouth world, it's an absolute staple, but in the largemouth world, you don't hear about it a whole lot, and that's a tube jig. This is a big bite tour tube, and like I said, for smallmouth, most people are going to put an insert head in there, cast out, drag it along on the rock, on the sand. It's something that every smallmouth fisherman probably won't leave without. But the one thing that I do a lot with it is I Texas rig it. And I really like to throw it around brush pile, offshore brush piles, and flip it into pockets of weeds. Anywhere you would flip a jig on the bank, or anywhere you would maybe, fish a shaky head or something on a brush pile offshore, I'll throw a tube. A lot of the reason why is because not many people throw it. So, and my setup's a little different. I've kind of spent a lot of years kind of, in my opinion, perfecting the hook, the rod, the reel, the line, and just the sinker setup. And one of the biggest components is the hook. So this is actually, it's an Owner K hook, and it's actually an inshore hook. It's what a lot of people use to nose hook like a shiner under a bobber. And this is a 4/0, and they'll come just as a standard hook. But I have a good friend of mine who's a real talented fly tyer, and I'll have him tie a 20-pound fluorocarbon keeper on there. So it's not real effective with other plastics, but with a tube, I'll show you why it's in my opinion, the best hook if you're going to Texas rig it. So you'll just take your bait, like your standard Texas rig, pop it through, slide it over, up over that keeper, and that little plastic keeper will just slide up here. And when you pop that hook through, it just lays perfectly flat along the top of that tube. Sometimes I'll pop that thing back in just to hide it, but when that fish bites it, it almost acts like a circle hook, where when it bites and you set the hook, that rotates in, and there's such a big gap in that hook, most time that slides out of the way, and it's the best hookup ratio that I have found with a tube. And I'll actually, the stock bend of the hook, I'll actually bend that hook point up a little bit, about 5 degrees, just so it starts to penetrate the roof of the mouth a little bit sooner. So that's the hook that I really like to use. And the other key factor for this rig, with the exception of if I'm skipping up under docks or under trees or anything like that, 99% of the time I'm not going to peg that sinker. I want it free, and I'll run anywhere from a quarter up to a 3/8 ounce sinker. And with that tube, what I really like is if I'm fishing over a brush pile or whatever it is, I like that bait to come over, and I like that sinker to separate, and I like that to fall down first. And then that just lets that tube glide down and fall real slow and natural, and that's a lot of times, when you'll get those bites. So I like to throw it on a St. Croix Legend Extreme 7-foot 4-inch heavy power fast action. Stout rod, but it's got a little bit of a soft tip on there, so you can still cast it good, but plenty of backbone to winch them out. I'll use 18 to 20 pound Sunline Shooter fluorocarbon, once again depending upon how heavy the cover it is. And yeah, flip it, pitch it, drag it around. It's just a really effective technique that's often overlooked. And this is a standard, like a cut tube, where basically they'll mold this bait and then they cut the tentacles afterwards. And with this particular bait, in most cases it's full of salt, so it's real heavy. It's good for when a fish eats it, they kind of have that salt taste, make them hold on a little bit longer. But the one other bait in that category that once again is kind of overlooked, it's going to be a craw tube. And with the craw tube, this is from Big Bite, it's going to be an injected bait. So this, if you see them out of the package, all these tentacles are the same because it's not cut afterwards. This is actually how the mold is set up, is it's injected into those tentacles. And there's also very little salt in it. There's some salt on the outside in the bag, but in the plastic, there's very little, if any, salt. So what that does is it makes it even more buoyant. So now when you pull that thing over the brush pile and that sinker separates, this thing will really hang up and fall really, really slow, especially with them claws on there, bulk it up. I mean, it is absolutely deadly fishing on that Texas rig with the free sliding weight. Now, great for flipping too. Pegging your sinker, flipping in pads, flipping in milfoil, skipping under docks, excellent for that. But on a free sliding Texas rig, it's even better in my opinion.